More than half of Russians believe the ongoing war in Ukraine has negatively affected their daily lives, according to a new survey by the independent research project Chronicles. The poll conducted in February 2025 said that 54% of respondents reported adverse effects from the conflict, while only 9% said it had improved their lives. Another 32% said they had not noticed any significant impact. The findings highlight growing public dissatisfaction with the economy and social consequences of the war, now in its third year. Economic hardship has been a key factor shaping public sentiment. The survey said that 36% of respondents reported a deterioration in their financial situation, up from 27% in September 2024. Among working Russians, 40% said they were forced to work longer hours to sustain themselves, while only 6% had experienced a reduction in workload. Rising inflation and economic pressures have made it increasingly difficult for many to maintain their standard of living. As the costs of war escalate, support for military spending as a national priority has declined. The share of respondents who believe defense should be the government's primary expenditure fell from 43% in September 2024 to 36% in February 2025. Meanwhile, those prioritizing social spending rose from 38% to 48%, reflecting shifting attitudes amid deepening economic difficulties. Despite these concerns, Russian society remains divided over the war itself. The poll found that 52% of respondents still support the invasion, while 48% do not. One of the key points of contention is whether Russian forces should withdraw from Ukraine without achieving the government's stated objectives. In February 2025, 41% supported a withdrawal, down from 50% in September 2024. Researchers suggest the decline is linked to recent battlefield developments, as Russian forces have made small territorial gains. These advances have reinforced the belief among some citizens that victory is within reach, reducing pressure for a negotiated settlement. Views on how best to end the war remain highly polarized. The survey found that 26% of respondents advocate escalation, including mobilization, territorial expansion, or other aggressive measures. In contrast, 23% support de-escalation through diplomatic means, such as negotiations, troop withdrawals, or agreements with Western leaders, including US President Donald Trump. Another 29% are uncertain about the best course of action, while 17% believe the situation should remain unchanged. Perceptions of external influence also shape expectations for the war's resolution. Respondents who see the conflict's outcome as dependent on figures like Trump or Chinese President Xi Jinping were more likely to anticipate a resolution in the near future. However, Russian President Vladimir Putin remains the most frequently cited figure in discussions about how the war might end.
The Republican Party members disagree over Donald Trump administration's Russo-Ukraine war policy as he continues to pursue a peace push. According to The Hill, some senators are highly dissatisfied with the administration's conduct, including the U.S.'s vote in the UN. Senate Appropriations Committee Chair Susan Collins dubbed the vote by the U.S. against Ukraine's UN resolution as shameful. She agreed with Senator Mitch McConnell's assessment that refusing to blame Russia as the undeniable and unprovoked aggressor in the conflict reflects a gross misunderstanding of the nature of negotiations and leverage. The Trump administration royally screwed up on Ukraine, Representative Don Bacon, Republican of Nebraska, said. The vast majority of Americans stand up for independence, freedom, and free markets, and against the bully and invader. Refusing to acknowledge Russia as the undeniable and unprovoked aggressor is more than an unseemly moral equivalency. It reflects a gross misunderstanding of the nature of negotiations and leverage, Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, said. Democratic Senator Jack Reed, a senior member of the Armed Services Committee, hit out at Trump's verbal attacks on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and increased alignment with Russia. Essentially, this is President Trump surrendering to the Russians, Reed said. This is not a statesman or a diplomat. This is just someone who admires Putin, does not believe in the struggle of the Ukrainians, and is committed to cozying up to an autocrat. Senator Lisa Murkowski marked the third anniversary of Russia's unprovoked war on Ukraine. We all want this senseless war to end, but ending it on Russia's terms would be a devastating mistake that plays right into Putin's bloody hands, Murkowski posted on social media. Putin is a murderer who's ordered the systematic capture, kidnapping, rape, and torture of countless numbers of Ukrainians, he said. That would have been my vote recommendation. Senate Majority Leader John Thune avowed that Russia is solely to blame for the conflict, while Senator John Cornyn added, "We're not confused about the facts." That is a fact, Senator John Cornyn. Senator Bill Cassidy said, "Russia's clearly the aggressor." Senator Lindsey Graham, a close Trump ally and prominent voice on national security issues, said Russia is the aggressor. Representative Jeff Hurd of Colorado said, "Did Russia invade Ukraine? Russia's invasion of Ukraine was an unprovoked act of war. Russian President Vladimir Putin is a dictator. Vladimir is undisputedly an enemy of America and a dictator. It is dishonorable and wrong not to stand up against the tyranny of Putin." The Ukrainian Air Force has once again struck a Russian military compound in the Kursk region of Russia. Ukrainian Telegram channels reported this. A MiG-29 fighter jet struck a house where Russian military personnel were gathered in the border area with the Bryansk region of Russia with a French-made AASM-250 Hammer aerial bomb, which is known for its accuracy. As a result, the house was blown up and the military personnel inside were killed. According to the information, various communication devices and radio-electronic warfare equipment stored in the house were also damaged. It should be noted that Ukrainian aviation regularly carries out precise strikes on the places where Russian military personnel are gathered in the Kursk region. It is said that the strikes were mainly carried out with AASM-250 Hammer aerial bombs. As a result, a large number of Russian and North Korean military personnel in the area were killed. A framework economic deal with the United States is ready, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Wednesday, but U.S. security guarantees that Kiev views as vital for its war with Russia remain to be decided, and a full agreement could hinge on talks in Washington as early as Friday. The agreed-upon framework deal is a preliminary step toward a comprehensive agreement that will be subject to ratification by Ukraine's parliament, Zelensky said during a news conference in Kyiv. Ukraine needs to know first where the United States stands on its continued military support, Zelensky said. He said that he expects to have a wide-ranging conversation with U.S. President Donald Trump during a visit to Washington. "We don't need only deals about money because we're now surviving. My first question is, will America stop military aid or not?" Zelensky told journalists on Wednesday. Since returning to office last month, Trump let Ukraine know that he wanted something in return for tens of billions of dollars. In U.S. help to fend off the full-scale invasion that Russia launched just over 3 years ago on February 24, 2022. The agreement, seen by the Associated Press, says that the United States supports Ukraine's efforts to obtain security guarantees needed to establish lasting peace. Participants will seek to identify any necessary steps to protect mutual investments as defined in the agreement, it says. A White House official made clear again Wednesday after Zelensky spoke that accepting the agreement was a necessary precondition of Trump's invitation to Zelensky to meet on Friday. The official spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the invitation. "This deal can be a big success or it can fade away quietly," Zelensky said. "Much success, I believe, depends on our conversation with President Trump." Trump has abruptly ditched some previous Washington policies. He scrapped efforts to isolate Russian President Vladimir Putin and cast doubt on U.S. support for its European allies.